Hi everyone, this is Aaron and I am here today with Pastor Matt Powell. Pastor Matt, we received an anonymous question from Tumblr and this person wants to know, is it possible for someone to die, see heaven and hell, and then come back alive by Jesus, like Jesus gave him an extra chance?
That's a good question. Part of that question, I think, might be in response to is heaven for real? And that's a totally different subject, I think, because that addresses what heaven is really like. But let me just address this question. Is it possible for someone to die, see heaven and hell, and then come back alive by Jesus? In John chapter 11, there's an account of Lazarus dying and Jesus raising him back to life. Not only just him, actually, there's a child who goes through a similar thing. And Jesus says, child arise, or daughter arise, and she rises. Same thing with Lazarus. Now, the interesting thing about that section of Scripture doesn't tell us anything about whether or not they went to heaven or hell. Nor does it speak about whether or not they saw heaven or hell. Lazarus never speaks about, I saw God in heaven, or I saw hell in that way. So Scripture is largely silent on that issue. The closest thing we have to is that we know that Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead. He was actually dead, and Jesus raised him back. So when it comes to this question, you're dealing with sort of an uncertainty. When it comes to a person like a Mickey Robinson who claims that when he died, saw heaven and hell, and then Jesus gave him an extra chance, I'm a little wary about those things. Why? Because what is necessarily descriptive in Scripture, such as Lazarus in John chapter 11, is not necessarily prescriptive all the time. I think Lazarus was a special case, and I think because you don't really necessarily see that anywhere else. Of course, you have the Apostle Paul, who after the Eutychus fell off, he was raised back to life as well. But none of those passages ever speak about them seeing heaven and hell. I think the clearest passage we can gain from in Scripture would be found in Hebrews chapter 9, where it tells us that just as a point for man to die once, and after that comes judgment. So Christ, having been offered once to bear sins of many, will appear a second time, not to deal with sin, but to save those who are eagerly waiting for him. I think that passage is very clear that once man dies, that's it. After that comes judgment, and it's either judgment to heaven or to hell. We have to go based upon what Scripture clearly sees as, hey, this person, once you actually die, Hebrews chapter 9 tells us that it's heaven or hell from there. With Lazarus, that's a special case. With Eutychus, it's a special case. I don't think that's prescriptive. That is descriptive of what was going on back then, but not necessarily prescriptive for today. I think Hebrews 9 gives us more of a prescriptive thing. And so is it possible? I think history bears witness that, sure, it's somewhat possible, but that was a special case. I don't necessarily think that's regulative or normative for today. Now, this isn't to say that I'm going to flat out just deny Mickey Robinson's testimony. I do think that probably what he experienced, what he thinks he experienced, was genuine. But whether or not it's truly him seeing heaven and hell, actually dying and coming back to life by Jesus, that's God give a second chance, I don't think so. I just think that Hebrews chapter 9 is very clear that once man dies once, that's it, comes judgment. And so that would be my answer.
Thanks, Pastor Matt, and thank you everyone for listening. Feel free to ask us all of your questions or check out our archive at unicoi questions.tumblr.com. Thanks. See you soon.